Supposedly one of the most underrated Hammer films. I'll be the judge of that. Hi guys, so before we get into it, a quick reminder that you'll find all my other Hammer reviews in my Hammer playlist, and there will be spoilers today. So this is a film largely about cults and devil worship, which is absolutely fine by me. I do like that as a general theme for a horror movie. One of my favourite horror films from the 70s is Race with the Devil, and coming into this I kind of thought to myself, okay, if we get something like Race with the Devil, I will be very, very happy. So in this film we've got three friends called Nicholas, Rex and Simon. They all live in the late 1920s. They're all very upper class. They wear fancy clothes. None of them seem to work. They've all got like big houses and fancy cars, but not at any point during this movie does anybody say, oh, I wish these cultists would get out of my hair because I've got to go to work tomorrow. Maybe we shouldn't overthink that, but at some point in their lives, Simon goes missing for a little while, and the other two track him down to a new house that he's bought. But when they go into this house to speak to this guy, they realise that he's hosting some kind of party for about 15 people that the two friends who were just turning up have never seen before. And all these people are part of like a satanic cult that Simon has got involved with, and Nicholas quickly deduces that they're probably going to be performing some kind of ritual that very same night to try and bring the devil back. So at the first opportune moment, Nicholas and Rex manage to get Simon out of the house before the cultists properly realise what's going on under their nose. But the cultists, and especially their leader, MacArthur, they're none too happy about this affront, you know, having their new member taken out from underneath them. So for the rest of the movie, the plot is very much set in motion at this point. The three friends are sort of on the run and the cult is after them, and off we go. The film was directed by Terence Fisher, this being 1968 or whatever. This is probably about the billionth Hammer film that Fisher had directed by this point. In terms of actors, we've got two main stars that I'm familiar with coming into this film. One of them obviously is Christopher Lee, and very, very pleased that he's playing Nicholas in this film, because I think if you'd have passed me this script before I'd watched the film and asked me to guess who Lee would be playing in it, I probably would have said, oh, he's probably going to play MacArthur, right? But I really like watching Christopher Lee play good guys, and I think it's really cool in this film that he gets to play Nicholas and not just be part of the cult, you know, doing that typical kind of Dracula stern persona. And the fact that Lee is not playing MacArthur means that we get to have Charles Gray playing that character. I've said many times during these Hammer reviews that I like seeing the crossover between James Bond films and Hammer films when it comes to the casting. And here's a new one that I've never seen before, Charles Gray, popping into a Hammer film. I know him from playing Henderson in You Only Live Twice, which is a fairly small part. Most people, if they remember him at all from Bond, will probably remember him from Diamonds Are Forever, where he played a much bigger role. He played Blofeld, and he's just as creepy in this Hammer film as he was in Diamonds Are Forever, possibly even more so in this one. So is this film any good? Well, I kind of predicted that it would be, because I've seen many people in Hammer Facebook groups say that this is a really underrated gem when it comes to all things Hammer. So I had to think that it would at least be pretty damn good, and it is. I did thoroughly enjoy it. I've only really got one negative for the whole film, and I'm going to get that out of the way really early today. So there are a few scenes in this where the entire cult, or most of the cult, are in the same room or the same space, and these are the weakest scenes in the film for me. I'm not sure that Terence Fisher had the time or maybe even the budget to properly do scenes with big, large crowds, and because, well, there's three scenes where the cult are all in one place. The first one is fine at the beginning in Simon's house. It's a fairly creepy scene because even though the cultists at this point haven't fully shown themselves, they're still acting really shifty, and I felt watching this that at any moment suddenly Simon and Rex and Nicholas were going to get grabbed and told that they were going to be the sacrifices for the night or something like that. So I like that opening scene in Simon's house. But there are two big crowd scenes later on which just don't really work that well. So there's one scene where the good guys have got to drive their car into the middle of the cultists, rescue somebody, and then get the hell out of there. But it just feels like this massive crowd of cultists just stand around not doing anything while the car then conveniently gets out of there. And it's like, yeah, these are meant to be the villains. Could you not like try and stop the good guys getting away, maybe, you know? And the same thing kind of happens in the finale. MacArthur and his goons, they're all there in this room, and the minute that it starts to turn against the villains, the cultists just seem to freeze and don't really do anything, including MacArthur. And I kind of feel like the two scenes just look a little bit odd. But this is the only thing about this movie I can really pick out. Most of the rest of it I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm going to enjoy getting into some of the stuff that I really did like. I do like it when I come across these Hammer films that are just one-offs. I mean, I like the big long series like Dracula and Frankenstein, but when I catch these one-offs now and again, things like The Reptile, The Witches, and this, you know, just Hammer attempting a different theme for one film only, it's really cool. There are a number of unsettling scenes in this film that really did get me going, and I think the impressive thing is that there aren't really any deaths in this film, at least among the good characters. I know some of the cult members, or all of the cult members, dying in the end, possibly. The plot gets a little bit confusing in its resolution in the last sort of 5 minutes, but we'll leave that aside for one moment. But yeah, this film's to be credited, I think, for giving you a pretty scary roller coaster of a time without actually showing any gore or deaths. It was a few nights ago I saw this film, so I can't be 100% sure that nobody dies in this, but I can't remember off the top of my head any good guys dying at any point. But yeah, there are a number of scary scenes that I've already touched upon. The early one in Simon's house, where Nicholas and Rex are mingling among the cult members, and they're not sure what's going on. And there's another good scene in that same location where, up in the observatory room a bit later on, the devil himself, or maybe it's his representative, just randomly pops up in the middle of the room, and I just felt like something really bad was going to happen at that moment. Maybe one of our two main characters at that junction would perish. That location, by the way, is absolutely unbelievable. Although, how the hell Simon can afford a house like that is beyond me. That must be like a £30 million mansion. Like Premier League footballers in 2023 would struggle to afford that house. So how Simon's able to do it in this film, I don't know, but let's not dwell on it. We mustn't dwell on stuff like that. There's another great scene later on which really got me going. It's like a car chase where the Rex character is trying to catch up to this woman who is sort of a member of the cult. I found it to be a really effective chase. And what made it doubly impressive is the fact that the Hammer film that I saw before this one, Blood on the Mummy's Tomb, had a little driving bit which was just absolutely atrocious. I don't think they had the money or the means to properly do a driving section. So what they did is they literally, well, I don't know what they did, but they squeezed it into about 2 seconds of film. Like for 1 second you can see somebody driving, and then for the next second somebody's crashed, and then we're moving on into the next scene. It's like, what the hell did I just watch? But thankfully in this film they do a driving section really well. It goes on for some time and I thoroughly enjoyed it. There is a lot of back projection, but I think what makes that not an important thing is that throughout the chase you'll see a few insert shots of actual real cars driving through country lanes, and then we go back to the back projection stuff. So the mixture of the two types of shot really helped sell the sequence, and there's lots of clever things that happen during this chase, like the woman using her devilry. It's MacArthur acting through her, I think, but yeah, she makes Rex's windscreen go all white so he can't see, and then later on there's a trick with the smoke. So there's lots of fun stuff to enjoy, and this scene really elevates the Rex character for me. He does some really smart, quick thinking, punching the windscreen so he can see through the hole. And Rex impressed me in this film overall because at the beginning of this, I kind of felt like out of the three friends, I think Rex was just a little bit naive, especially next to Christopher Lee, who just seems to know everything about everything in this film. But Rex was a little bit kind of, just didn't even seem to know he was in a horror film. And watching this for the first time, I thought to myself, yeah, this guy's gonna get offed at any point during this. There's another Hammer film called She, which involves three male friends crossing a desert, and there's one character among those three in that film who's a little bit kind of doesn't know which way he's walking. He's got to sort of rely on his other two friends who are much more in the know about things. Rex is that character in this film, but you know what? As this plot progresses, and sometimes he has to get by without Nicholas, he suddenly rises up and becomes like a really great warrior against the occult. He proves that he can stand up on his own 2 feet when the moment comes, and certainly the car chase is one of those moments where he really shines. There's a scene where the characters huddle together in a circle in the middle of a room, and they're protected by some kind of protective ring or something like that, and McCarter just throws the kitchen sink at them in this sequence. Even though he's not in the room himself, he sends their way like this big apocalyptic horseman, and then we see a spider come in the room, and this spider seems to get slightly bigger every time the camera moves to it, or maybe that was just my perception, but there's one moment where a child comes in the room and the spider turns towards it and gets up on these like little hind legs that it's got, I think, and stands like an inch from the child, and it's about to devour her, or that's how it seems, and the child's not running away, it's just screaming at this spider, and I was just thinking, oh my God, are they really going to do it? Are they really going to kill the child? I thought they might. I mean, there's not really many deaths in this film, but in that moment, I thought they might just do this, because the thing is, in some of these older films, and this isn't just horror that I'm talking about now, it's all films like the 50s, 60s, if there's a story in these older films where something horrific does have to happen for the story's sake, they will do it, they just won't show it, that they'll do it off camera. And I thought that was what was going to happen with this. I thought, okay, the child might actually bite the bullet here, and what they'll do is they'll show it just off camera, and while the horror is happening, we'll get a cutaway to another character, and we'll see that character in close-up just go, oh. I've seen that a lot in older films, you know, that cutaway to somebody twisting their face away in utter horror and disgust, and that's how we know that that thing we were afraid to happen did happen. We're just not allowed to see it because it's the 50s or the 60s or whatever. But yeah, for a minute I did think that child was going to bite the bullet. I mean, 2023 horror films, they'll throw buckets of blood around, they'll cut limbs off, they'll have daggers going through people's mouths, they'll show all kinds of nasty stuff in 2023, but I'm sort of wondering whether they would show something like this in 2023. You know, I think a lot of writers, directors would shy away from having a spider get really confrontational with a small child who's screaming, but hey ho, it might just be a devil's rides out thing. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about in this film, and I've deliberately left it towards the end because it's not really a positive or a negative, it's just something that I found really funny about this film. So it involves the character of Nicholas, played by Christopher Lee. Nicholas seems to know everything about the occult in this, and it comes in very handy for our characters, but there were many times where I thought to myself, how the hell do you know everything and everything, to the point where it wouldn't surprise me if you know more about this stuff than McCarter himself. Like all the way through this, he'll just say things to characters like Rex, like, oh, I know what this is. It's the third ritual of Pethusius they're trying to do, and if they're successful under the fourth moon of the month, that could mean the apocalypse, and that's bad for all of us. I'm not giving you any kind of direct quote there, but he'll just randomly come out with like a few sentences of stuff that just nobody would ever know. It's just weird that he would know this, you know. It's like this character, before this movie starts, just spent all of his evenings in his drawing room reading dusty books from the shelf, because this was an era where they didn't have Netflix or whatever. But I think the fact that Nicholas is like this, it's one of the little subtle reasons why I still prefer Race with the Devil over this film, even though they're both from sort of the same era, and they're both very well made films. But I just like those characters in Race with the Devil. They're more like me. They're just normal people who, you know, work a day job, they're going on holiday, and then they stumble into this cult, and they've got to survive this situation even though they themselves know nothing about the cult or the devil. In this film, Nicholas knows all about the occult, and he's well armed, you know, to sort of protect himself. But I just couldn't fathom how the hell he would know all the stuff that he knows in this film. It was really weird. I can just picture Christopher Lee, though, bless him, being at home at the time this film was being made, learning all these stupid lines, and then coming into work, and professional as anything, just saying them all into the camera, getting it all done in one take, his face completely, you know, avoiding cracking a smile. I just couldn't do it. My face would break if I had to say some of the lines that Nicholas says in this film, but that's probably why I'm not an actor. So I'll quickly show you the version of the film that I've got for this. Here is my Blu-ray copy of The Devil Rides Out. It was done by Studio Canal, and on a technical level, it's absolutely fine. Audio, visual, absolute top-notch. Can't complain on that score. It does come in a slipcover. I haven't decided if I'm going to get rid of the slipcover yet. I've had this film sort of lying around near the TV for the last few days. I haven't put it away yet in the collection. I think when I do put it away, that'll be the moment whether I decide to bin the slipcover, though I'm not usually a fan of slipcovers. There are a few special features on this. So we've got 3 documentaries. One of them is called Black Magic, The Making of The Devil Rides Out. Another one is called The Power of Light, Restoring The Devil Rides Out. That'll be where Studio Canal get to boast about what they've done with this film. Fine. And the third one is called Dennis Wheatley at Hammer. Now, as far as I know, Dennis Wheatley was the guy who wrote the original novel on which this film is based. And there are times during this film where it did occur to me that this film might be better as a novel than a film. Like the ending, for example, I didn't fully grasp everything supernatural that was happening in the last sort of 5 or 10 minutes. I had to go on Wiki and just read the plot, read what I just watched on my TV screen, and I was kind of like, oh right, that happened to McCarter in the end, did it? Okay, I'll take your word for it. But for the most part, this is still an enjoyable film, but I could definitely imagine it being even better as a novel, possibly. There's also a commentary track featuring Christopher Lee, Sarah Lawson and Marcus Hearn. I might give that a chance, although the last time I tried to watch a commentary involving Christopher Lee, there were like 4 people in the room and they were all kind of talking over each other. You can have too many people doing a commentary at the same time, but this commentary track has 3 people instead of 4, so maybe Lee will be better in this one. I do not know. There's also a gallery, and that just about wraps up all of the special features. Right, it's time to get to the bag of terror and find out what sort of score I'm going to give this movie. So, we got 1, 2, 3, 3.5 bloody axes out of 5. This is another fine addition to my Hammer collection. It's a decent film. I don't love it, I've got to say, but I do have a lot of respect for it, and it's definitely one I could see myself watching in the future. So that's that for today. I think I'll be back soon. I've got half an eye on doing The Lost Continent as my next Hammer review, but I'm not 100% yet, but we'll see. Right, for now, I'll love you and leave you. See you next time.